If you watch a movie about a haunting, you are conditioned to expect slow-building dread. The tension mounts over several minutes, culminating in a terrifying, prolonged encounter with the supernatural. Most of those movies fail precisely because they stretch a split-second anomaly into a 90-minute narrative. A real ghost sighting does not last an hour and a half. It is just a fleeting fraction of a second where your eyes catch something impossible before it vanishes. To see how these fleeting encounters actually operate, we have to look at a place heavily saturated with them, the historic, fog-draped environment of New York's Hudson River Valley. When photographer Todd Atterbury traveled to Sleepy Hollow, he wanted to test an idea put forward centuries ago by the author Washington Irving. Irving claimed that a specific contagion of dreams and fancies still infected the air of this region. To understand what occurs in these highly charged environments, we have to throw out the cinematic tropes. We need to examine the physical limits of human perception. This diagram illustrates what we can call the viewfinder effect. You start with your normal, wide field of peripheral vision, but the moment you look through a camera lens, your brain is forced into a tight, dark box of extreme sensory isolation. When your environment is reduced to that tiny tunnel, you are entirely cut off from the physical space around you. You are as completely vulnerable as Janet Leigh stepping into the shower in Psycho. Atterbury was experiencing exactly this kind of sensory isolation while killing time before sunset, shooting photos in the cemetery behind the 17th century Old Dutch church. He gets the shot. The instant he lowers the camera from his eye, the tunnel vision shatters. His brain is flooded with a massive, jarring wave of spatial awareness. In that specific, vulnerable fraction of a second, he sees a man standing just a few feet to his right, dressed completely in colonial-era gear. His eyes clearly register the physical mass of another person, but in that exact same split second, his returning spatial awareness tells him the cemetery is completely empty. He is entirely alone. These strange encounters do not occur during sequences of creeping terror. They happen in the microscopic gap where the brain is violently shifting gears between intense hyperfocus and broad environmental awareness. This flowchart represents cognitive rationalization. When senses pick up impossible data, your mental filter intercepts it, rerouting it straight into the trash. In the cemetery, Atterbury's brain performed this override. The vanishing soldier was replaced with a logical excuse, a historical reenactor. We see this psychological defense mechanism apply to sound, too. Later that day, Atterbury was shooting inside Washington Irving's 17th century home, Sunnyside. The house was closed for the season, but while peering through his viewfinder in an empty room, he heard the distinct close-up sound of a woman laughing right behind him. Once again, his brain rushed to maintain a stable reality. It instantly assigned that feminine giggle to Anthony, his young male tour guide who was waiting downstairs. A few minutes later, Anthony came upstairs and casually asked Atterbury what he had been laughing about. Neither man had made the sound, but their brains had individually invented excuses for what they heard to keep the world making sense. Whether the glitch is visual or in your ears, the mind is highly motivated to protect its baseline reality. It acts as its own skeptic, actively deleting the paranormal as soon as it registers. If you filmed these real encounters, nobody would buy a ticket. You get maybe 2 seconds of mundane action, followed by 2 confused people shrugging it off. There are no howling screams or dramatic music cues. The defining feature of an actual supernatural event is how entirely ordinary it feels in the moment. Because there is no grand cinematic climax to force us into believing, we happily let our internal filters do their job. 5 minutes later, we successfully convince ourselves that we misheard a noise or saw a trick of the light. It makes you wonder about your own memory. How many impossible things have you already seen or heard, only for your brain to quietly edit them out before you could fully process them? The most effective trick of the paranormal is its reliance on our own psychological biology to seamlessly hide its existence.